Good morning. It's a week and a day before Christmas. That's right. It's 1 week away from Christmas Eve. And we have a couple maps to show you of a possibility of a white Christmas where you are. So stick around for that. December 17th, 7:47 in the morning here in western Iowa, where nothing's going on. It's 25 degrees and pretty good frost out there. Beautiful sunrise. All right, watches and warnings across the country. West Coast, we're looking at the Cascades of Oregon, winter storm warning. That goes into eastern Oregon, places like John Day, for example. Then you head up into Washington State winter weather advisories and southern Oregon winter weather advisories, northern Idaho winter weather advisories into Montana. Also, eastern Idaho into Wyoming, and then a winter storm warning there. Yellowstone south, and a little bit down there in the southeast corner. Wind issues for Montana. High wind watches up. High wind warnings up. A small swath of some light snow across South Dakota into Minnesota with a winter weather advisory here and a little bit down into Colorado, barely. And down in California, red flag warnings along the coast. Also some wind advisories. So be advised there's going to be some wind. Also the upper Colorado River, not far from Vegas or Lake Havasu in Arizona. Then it's fog, Central California into San Francisco, along the Gulf Coast, Texas, Louisiana, into Alabama and Mississippi, also parts of Georgia and Florida and South Dakota and South Carolina and North Carolina. I know I do that. Virginia and way up there in northern New York and Vermont. Some more wind issues with, I believe those are wind advisories. Yes, they are. All right, your 24-hour temperature change. It's a lot colder than yesterday morning in southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, western Tennessee. I did it again. Into Kentucky, the Paducah Lakes region, southern Illinois, and all the way back into Oklahoma. That's where the coldest change from yesterday. But it's cooler in the plains into the Midwest and Great Lakes. Warmer along the East Coast up into New England and also for the Rockies. Otherwise, pretty close to what it was yesterday. Those temperatures look like this. We have 20s all the way down into, let's say below freezing all the way down into southern Missouri, down into, I can't quite read Amarillo. I think that's 29. And then all the way down in New Mexico in the mountains, also for Arizona. But 40s and 50s for southern Arizona, and 40s and 50s along the central California, 40s up there in Oregon. Really warm start for eastern Texas, southern Texas into Louisiana, Mississippi, up into Alabama even. 50s and 60s, mostly 60s here. And same for Florida, warm start. All right, surface for today. We have a cold front in the northern plains, upper Midwest, and that little bit of a system bringing a little bit of snow. That's why we have that winter weather advisory. South Dakota could get into Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan with time today. Idaho with a chance of snow statewide and could be heavy there in Wyoming south of, again, Yellowstone. And then we have maybe some freezing rain possible in Washington State in the Cascades, showery weather from Texas all the way up to West Virginia and also Florida, and kind of a mix up there in New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Anomalous temperatures today, pretty much everyone above average, just slightly below average northern plains. Highs today, coldest in the northern plains. Teens and 20s up there in North Dakota, 20s and 30s in South Dakota, 30s and 40s here in Iowa, 50s in Kansas, 60s in Oklahoma, 60s and 70s, Texas into Louisiana, across the southeast 70s, then back up the East Coast. I mean, we're holding on to 60s for highs today in say North Carolina, moving up into Virginia even, 40s and to near 50 for Pennsylvania into New York, all the way up to Maine. So pretty warm for this time of year. Lows tomorrow morning, though, getting below zero or pretty close to it up there along the Canadian border and down in Florida. The lows are like 60 something. So pretty warm, 40s for southern Arizona. And then the surface for tomorrow. So here's today's surface, and then tomorrow's surface. We see the freezing rain possibility, South Dakota, Minnesota, North Dakota, Montana. Watch out there. Otherwise, it's snow, North Dakota, Minnesota, and Michigan. Could be a mix up there in the northeast, changing to rain as you head south and showers as you head further south. In the west, it's rain and snow depending on location and elevation. Anomalous temperatures tomorrow. Again, a lot of people above average, much above average, southeast and they're into all the way up into West Virginia, and also the west, pretty far below average for this time of year, but quite a bit below average up there in North Dakota. So some cold air is coming for the Midwest just in time for the weekend. Highs tomorrow. We'll get a little bit of it here in Iowa. We're going to be back near freezing for highs after 40s today, and then up further north it's teens for highs. Down in the southeast, 70s, widespread. Even a couple 80s down there in Florida. Warm 70s for southern Arizona. 50s Central California, 50s Western Oregon, 40s Eastern Oregon, 47 Boise for tomorrow's high, and then you see 40s all the way up into the Great Lakes and Northeast. Crazy. Precipitation-wise, the heaviest rain is going to be from Arkansas, northern Mississippi, through Tennessee, into Kentucky and West Virginia, also down there in Florida. And then some pretty heavy rain along the Oregon and Washington coast, and some of that's going to be snow up there in the higher elevations. So the higher elevations of Idaho, Oregon, Washington especially, and then even into Wyoming, we were talking about that heavy snow expected there. So some pretty big amounts. The entire Snake River in Idaho is snow-free on this map. So that's the full smiley face. Let's say the Cheshire Cat, if I can say that right. The Cheshire Cat. All right, meanwhile, snow in South Dakota, Minnesota, up into North Dakota. Could get up to 5-6 inches here. And some snow up there in northern New England. Surface for tomorrow. Well, here comes some snow a little further east into the Great Lakes, into the northeast. Things quieting down in the west, but some rain and snow here. And some showers down in Florida. Anomalous temperatures on Thursday, warming up for parts of the plains into the Midwest before another shot of cold air comes. And that you can see that coming in Montana, North Dakota. And yeah, so pretty warm for much of the country here. Highs on Thursday. I mean, we got 50s all the way into Nebraska, 60s for Texas. So a little cooler for you, Houston, with 65. I think that's what that says. 60s across the southeast, so a little bit cooler here too. And then warmer, of course, in Florida, also southern Arizona, and cold along the Canadian border. Let's head over to the GFS. And we can show you what's going on. So this is 6 a.m., so almost 2 hours ago. But you see some light scattered snows here and some light scattered rain up here and down here. And then as we go forward in time today, there you see our little patch of snow for South Dakota, even clipping northwestern Iowa, and close enough to where I live, where the National Weather Service has put a 20% chance of snow in the forecast for this afternoon and tonight. Shouldn't amount to anything, but we'll see. That'd be nice. Some scattered rain, Tennessee, Arkansas. There's the heavy stuff, though, as we get into this evening, and that's Washington State. Rain along the coast, snow up in the mountains. Rain increasing. This is Wednesday morning, 6 a.m. here, and some heavy rains across Arkansas, Tennessee, into Kentucky. Heavy rains in Oregon and Washington with heavy snow as you go up in elevation. Cold air intrusion for the northern plains and into the Midwest, into the Great Lakes. And as we get through the day tomorrow, you see this line of storms moving south and east, changing to snow, interacting with that colder air on the backside along the eastern Great Lakes. A little patch of snow up here and some wind up there in Montana. And then as we go through the day, this gets us into Thursday early morning. Some snow up here along the Canadian border, getting into South Dakota in Minnesota, places like Brookings getting snow, moving into Minneapolis. And so this is our low here. It's going to open the door for the cold air to head south for the weekend. And so that low fizzles out a little bit and weakens as it moves into Iowa, but a little bit of light snow for the Great Lakes. And you see this blue line, the 540 line, again, usually the demarcation between rain and snow. So this is where the colder air is. The red lines are the warmer air. So that colder air making pretty good southern progress as we get into, this is Thursday night at midnight. So 6Z, Central Time is 6Z minus 6. So that gets us to midnight Thursday. And then here we go, Friday morning, a little bit of snow in the Great Lakes. Not much else going on. Cold air heading south and east, mostly east, dipping into Tennessee and North Carolina. And we see the cold air hanging on here in Iowa. Actually, Friday is going to be our coldest day. And then as we get into Saturday, and we see maybe a little bit of snow along the New England coast with I wouldn't call it a nor'easter, but a pretty strong storm with some wind. And then the colder air right here. So anywhere from the east central U.S. up the coast back into the Great Lakes and Midwest and Northern Plains is where the coldest air is. Kind of warm in the west and the south. Little patch of snow there. This gets us into Saturday, the 21st. We're getting close to Christmas, and it's pretty quiet. Pretty big storm here moving into Northern California, Oregon, and Washington with rain, heavy rain. A little bit of snow up in the Cascades of Oregon. And then as that moves into Idaho, you see a little bit of snow here, but a little bit of rain. It's pretty small, but right near Boise, there's a little bit of rain, but higher elevations getting snow. This is the 22nd, getting close to Christmas time. Pretty quiet, cold air all the way down into the Carolinas, warm air across much of the west, but a little bit cooler here in the northwest, and another system approaching the Pacific Northwest, with rain and snow inland. So we've got rain, Treasure Valley, snow around that, heavy rain along the coast, Oregon, Washington, Northern California. Mix. It depends on the elevation in Northern California. Looks like the snow level is going to start out rather high. This is Sunday at Sunday afternoon. And then Sunday evening, rain and snow, Idaho, Oregon, Washington, California. The warm air moving back into the Midwest after a cold weekend, say for Iowa, but still hanging on to the cold for the Great Lakes and especially the Northeast. Rain and snow in the Gem State and up into the Evergreen State, and a little bit in the Golden State. All right, as we go through time, this is Monday morning, the 23rd. Christmas Eve, another system moving in to the Pacific Northwest while some more snow spreads across the Great Lakes. As we get into, this is midnight, Monday night, look at that strong low off the Washington coast. This is heavy wind. When you see these isobars that close together, that's just a lot of wind. And so it's going to be maybe enough to do damage. We'll see. Some heavy rain in the Cascades, so warm air too. But you get into Washington, it's colder. So heavy snow here. Little tiny patch of snow there in Idaho and rain in California. And as that system moves in, it moves into Canada. So the worst is, Oregon is spared the worst, I should say. But Washington is going to get hammered if this comes true on Christmas Eve. This is 6 a.m. Christmas Eve. A line of showers and heavy rain, mostly rain, moving through Idaho into Montana. A little bit of snow mixed in, and higher elevations will get snow, and that goes all the way down into California. Meanwhile, rain here in Missouri, Illinois, Oklahoma, up into Michigan. As we get into Christmas Eve day, we see a little bit of snow up there in the eastern Great Lakes, a little bit of rain in the eastern Great Lakes, and some heavy rain down here in New Orleans as we go through Christmas Eve day. This is midnight, Christmas Eve day, so we're getting into Christmas on these next few frames. So Christmas is pretty quiet. A little bit of snow up here in New England, a little bit of rain in the Ohio Valley, tiny bit of snow up here in the Rockies. and another system approaching the Pacific Northwest. As we get into Christmas evening, that storm moves in, and midnight is heavy rain along the Oregon and Washington coast with more wind, not quite as strong as the last one. So that gets us through Christmas. So we'll show you the white Christmas map here in a little bit. Friday's highs. This is the coldest day in Iowa on this 7-day forecast with highs in the 20s. And we have 30s and 40s down, 40s for Arkansas, 50s for the southeast. So this will be the coolest day for the southeast too, I do believe. Right near 60, South Carolina. We see pretty cold up there in the northern New England. And then 40s and 50s for much of the Northwest. And warm in southern Arizona. Surprise, surprise. High Saturday. Was that Gomer Pyle? Oh my goodness. All right, high Saturday. 20s and 30s in Iowa, so warming up a little bit, but still cold. And those 30s below freezing highs run through Ohio up into Pennsylvania and up into New England. And then you get down in Texas, 60s. You get down in Florida, 70s. I think that's 70s down there around Tucson. 40s and 50s for the Northwest. Sunday, you can see that cold air retreat. Watch Saturday, Sunday, cold air retreating north, but increasing, getting colder, I should say, for New England. So near 40 maybe on Sunday here in western Iowa. 60s remain in Texas, and 40s and 50s still for the Northwest, and 40s for the east central part of the United States. Highs on Monday. Cold air retreats a little further north in the Midwest, but Minnesota's still below freezing. A little warmer in Texas and along the south. All right, 8 to 14-day temperatures, just depressing. The whole country with a good chance of above average temperatures from Christmas Eve till the end of the month. Alaska, a little bit below average up there in the northeastern part, and it looks like Hawaii is warm too. The good news is, I guess, increasing precipitation for much of the country, especially the Pacific Northwest, as we showed you, storm after storm after storm. All right, I have two maps for you for the White Christmas. This is the GFS ensemble, and you can see where the snow is the heaviest. We got a little bit of light snow for parts of Iowa, but below an inch. Remember, definition White Christmas, an inch of snow on the ground during the day on Christmas. And then we'll take a look at the Canadian. Canadian has a little bit more areas, I should say, but they also have a dusting in Oklahoma. I don't know where that came from, but I think this is really interesting. Look at Virginia and North Carolina. Both models have some snow on the ground there. And so will you see a White Christmas? Well, I don't know where you live. So depending. I mean, for example, Boise. I have a friend who's going to Boise for Christmas. And so less of a chance here on the GFS, a little better chance on the Canadian. So maybe. Same for, Iowa, where I am in western Iowa, and nothing on the ground where I live here. But the Canadian has at least a little bit of snow on the ground for Christmas. So we shall see, and we'll keep you posted. Really appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. The Weather Mike. See you tomorrow.